Hello everyone, today I'll show you how I wrote SUB to PEWDS in the sky with light painting technique using my DJI Mavic 2 Pro and its little LED light. This will be more of a walkthrough than an in-depth tutorial. I'll cover the post-production process a bit, but I won't go into too much detail. Things you'll need are a camera with manual control and preferably a bulb mode, an external shutter release and a pretty sturdy tripod. And of course your Mavic 2. This finished photo was actually done from a third attempt, so I'll cover my process from planning to execution so that you don't have to do too much trial and error before succeeding. The first thing I did was I found my location. I wanted it to be an open field with minimal light pollution, so I found it near an abandoned airstrip. I created my waypoint path at home and went to shoot it. I used my intervalometer as an external shutter release and set my Canon 7D Mark II to bulb mode. That way I could start taking a photo and lock the shutter for it to stay opened, which allowed me to have an exposure for as long as I wanted instead of the maximum 30 seconds my camera offers. Apart from not planning the waypoint path correctly, this was my first mistake. The shutter was opened for too long and I started getting start rails in my shot. Combine this with a badly planned path and the picture was not as impressive even if I applied the final developed settings in Lightroom. Then, while I was still on location, I drew a new path and tried to redo the painting to use up my batteries, but the outcome still wasn't all that great. I went home, prayed that T-Series doesn't pass PEWDS and makes my whole endeavor obsolete, and planned a new path. I've calculated the field of view of my setup using the site pointsinfocus.com. I've then measured the distance using the Google Maps feature and screenshotted the view of the location I'll be shooting on and opened it in After Effects. I've then created the virtual camera with the settings I've calculated and I've placed my camera on the spot I'll be shooting from, and then switched to top view to double check myself using an app called Photo Transit. Since I knew I'll be using a lot of waypoints and the default height of the waypoints is 50 meters, I needed to place my text to a 50-meter height in After Effects. I've calculated the height using the measured distance from Google Maps and placed my text on 50 meters of altitude. Then I've placed the text to be in frame, and by looking at the top-down view, I created my waypoints in DJI app. To make sure my text will be in frame, I first created sort of a makeshift guidelines of my field of view and then created the waypoints. Since it would take around 15 minutes and a lot of battery to finish everything up, I've actually created 3 tasks for each word, and when I was done, I deleted the guidelines. I've also placed a point of interest in each task and oriented the Mavic towards it because I found that LED shines the brightest from the back of the drone. Then I waited for appropriate weather conditions. There mustn't be any wind, but I also wanted it to be fairly cloudy so that the stars on the night sky don't ruin my photos. Once on location, I've set up my camera, lifted my Mavic and started flying. I wanted to have full control over the letters, and in case I screw something up, I could go back to a certain letter, so I decided to take one photo for each letter. Mavic would continue flying and I would take bulb photos using my intervalometer. For more complicated letters, I programmed the C2 button on the controller to switch the auxiliary lighting modes. So, for example, the letter E was done in a single photo, but I've turned on the LEDs 3 times. After finishing up the waypoints, I've taken a single 15-minute exposure to get those milky clouds. Once in post-production, I've imported all my photos and selected the ones I'll use. I've done some primary corrections on my 15-minute exposure and pasted them on my letters. Then for each letter I've made sure that I crush everything except the letters using brushes, gradients and basic sliders like contrast, clip points, clarity and dehaze. Once I was done, I imported all the photos as layers in Photoshop. Then I've created a mask for each letter and set the blending mode to add. And then I've adjusted the black clip for each letter to get rid of the glow around them. I've then grouped the letters and repositioned them a bit to make everything nice and symmetrical. And for the final touch, led by the first failed attempt, I've taken a star stack photo I've taken last summer, tutorial coming soon, and added a bit of star trails in the background to make the photo more interesting. The main thing I did was played around with clipping points, created the mask for where I want the stars to show to sort of mimic the stars showing through the clouds, and then finally set them to add mode and lower the layer opacity. And then I went into Lightroom and did some final edits to the photo, giving me the final result. And that's about it. All this trial and error, creating around 10 waypoint tasks which I didn't even show in the video, shooting and editing took me around 40 hours to complete. So smash that sub button. You can find all the gear I've used in the description below. Thanks for watching and goodbye.